National parks are supposed to protect life, but lately they've been protecting something else. Rangers won't talk about it, visitors record it, and what's happening out there keeps repeating. These aren't ghost stories, they're patterns, and they're growing. Lock your doors, put on your headphones, because after this video, you'll never look at America's national parks the same way again. The sky trumpets over Yellowstone. It started as a sound, low, metallic, and impossible to place. It rolled across Yellowstone one frozen morning in 2015, a hum that wasn't thunder, wasn't wind, and didn't fade. Campers pulled out their phones, recording as the noise vibrated through the air. It was deep, almost mournful, like a trumpet played underwater, the kind of sound you feel more than hear, in your chest, in your teeth. Within hours, the recordings went viral. Trumpets of the sky, people called them. Locals said it sounded like the world itself exhaling. Park rangers dismissed it as ice shifting under the lake or wind scraping through the canyons. But that didn't explain what came next. Over the following months, the same sound was reported again, not just in Yellowstone, but in Glacier, Banff, and Denali. Always the same tone, always the same vibration, and always when the sky was clear and still. Scientists began studying the frequency. It matched nothing natural. No seismic activity, no wind resonance, no animal call. One geophysicist from Montana State described it as a pressure wave without a source. In 2016, new recordings came in from the Norris Geyser Basin. Dozens of visitors stood frozen as the sky began to sing again, a metallic chorus echoing between the trees. The geysers boiled harder, the air trembled, and the sound cut off as suddenly as it began. Even more unsettling were the reports that followed. Rangers patrolling the backcountry said their radios crackled with the same tone, faint, distant, like an old transmission bleeding through static. Sometimes it lasted seconds, sometimes minutes. When they tried to triangulate the source, the signal didn't come from above, it came from beneath. There's a theory, quiet, unofficial, that the sound is connected to the supervolcano under Yellowstone, pressure moving through rock like air through a trumpet. But that doesn't explain why it's been heard on days without seismic activity, or why it's been captured more than 100 miles from the park. In 2018, a family camping near Hayden Valley reported waking to the noise at 2 a.m. They said the entire forest was vibrating. Branches shook, the ground seemed to hum, and when they looked up, the stars themselves appeared to ripple, like light seen through water. The National Park Service released no statement, but leaked emails from that same week show rangers were ordered to log and archive all unusual acoustic reports. By 2021, the sound had become part of Yellowstone's unofficial mythology. Tourists came hoping to hear it. Some did, and left quickly. Others stayed, recording hours of silence, convinced the ground was breathing just beneath them. Then, in 2023, the sound returned, louder than ever, captured on multiple cameras, echoing across the canyon like a metallic roar. Witnesses described animals behaving strangely, bison huddled together, elk fleeing the valley, birds abandoning the trees. When the noise stopped, the forest fell completely still. Not a leaf moved, not a single insect sang. Just silence, absolute, ringing, unnatural silence. No official report was released, but local rangers quietly stopped camping alone in the backcountry after that week. Because sometimes the park doesn't just call, it warns. And if the sky itself can make a sound that no one can explain, what do you make of the shapes caught on Yosemite's security cameras, moving through fog, walking on trails that don't exist, and vanishing when the lights return? The shadow figures of Yosemite. Yosemite is one of the most photographed places on Earth. Granite cliffs, silver waterfalls, meadows glowing under the moon. But after dark, those same cliffs cast shadows that move when they shouldn't. The first reports came from night security at the Yosemite Lodge. Guards began noticing movement on the monitors, figures walking along closed trails, alone, without flashlights. When they checked the feeds again, the shapes were gone. At first, it was dismissed as glitches, compression errors, camera flare, until a ranger named David Laramie saw it in person. He was patrolling the Lower Falls Trail after midnight when he caught a shape moving against the moonlight. It looked human, tall, slim, but somehow blurred, as if half transparent. When his flashlight hit it, it froze. Then it melted into the trees, vanishing without sound. The next morning, the camera above the trail showed nothing. No movement, no heat signature. Weeks later, another ranger saw the same figure near the Ahwahnee Hotel. It appeared at the edge of the parking lot, walking straight into the fog, then simply were dissolved. When the park reviewed the footage, the timestamp matched both sightings. 2 cameras, 2 different locations, 1 exact second. By 2018, more footage appeared. Hikers began posting videos online showing tall black silhouettes drifting along ridges, visible even in full daylight, shapes that didn't cast shadows of their own. One clip, shot near tunnel view, shows a figure crossing the overlook in a single frame. The next frame is empty. No cut, no blur, just gone. Officials refused to comment, but a leaked maintenance memo surfaced that same year. It read, "Thermal anomalies detected in multiple sectors. Pattern resembles upright forms. Duration, 6 to 8 seconds. Recommend review." When investigators analyzed the footage, they found something impossible. The shapes absorbed infrared light, not reflected, absorbed, as if the cameras themselves were being drawn into the image. Rangers who patrol the park at night now follow an unofficial rule: never look directly into the fog when it's moving against the wind. They say you might see something looking back. Visitors have reported the same sensation, walking the trail at dusk, feeling watched, then spotting movement in their peripheral vision. Some describe a hum in the air before it happens, low, electric, the same pitch heard in the Yellowstone sky trumpets. In 2020, the park installed new infrared sensors. Within a week, the system began tripping alarms between 2 km and 3 a.m. Always the same spots, always the same length of time. The official explanation remains wildlife interference, but the animals in Yosemite don't move in straight lines, and they don't disappear when lights hit them. In 2022, a technician reviewing archived footage noticed something hidden in the static of a night recording, a faint outline standing just behind one of the security cameras. For 6 frames, it didn't move. Then the feed cut out completely. The technician quit the following day. No one speaks openly about the figures now, but the files are still there, locked, archived, labeled only with dates and times. And if you watch the live trail cameras online late enough at night, you might see it yourself. A faint shadow drifting through the mist where no trail has ever existed. Because Yosemite's beauty doesn't end when the sun sets. Something else wakes up. And if the mountains can grow eyes that watch in silence, what do you make of the desert, where lights drift above the sand in Death Valley, moving with purpose, vanishing just as suddenly? The lights of Death Valley. Death Valley is supposed to be lifeless, a place of salt, silence, and heat so brutal it bends the air itself. But sometimes the desert glows. Reports of mysterious lights over Death Valley stretch back to the 1940s, long before anyone had drones or LED flashlights. They're described as orbs, blue, white, or amber, moving low over the desert floor, sometimes drifting, sometimes darting away like living things. One of the first accounts came from a prospector in 1946. He claimed he was crossing the valley at dusk when a sphere of blue light appeared above the dunes. It hovered 20 feet from the ground, pulsing softly. When he raised his lantern, the light flashed once and shot straight up into the sky, leaving no trace. The military blamed experimental aircraft. Locals blamed the desert itself. In the 1960s, rangers began logging unusual aerial activity. Most entries mention orbs hovering near the Panamint Mountains, sometimes in pairs. No sound, no heat, and when approached, gone. Tourists still report them today. Videos posted online show floating lights weaving silently through the night, always above the sand flats, always vanishing at the edge of the camera frame. Scientists have suggested everything from plasma to static electricity, trapped between hot and cold air layers. But those explanations don't fit the movement. The orbs don't drift with wind or temperature. They move against it. One ranger, interviewed anonymously in 2015, described chasing one across the mesquite dunes. "It was like it knew I was there. Every time I moved, it moved. Every time I stopped, it stopped." He said it disappeared only when he reached the top of the tallest dune, leaving behind the faint smell of ozone. In 2018, a documentary crew set up thermal cameras across the valley. Just before midnight, one camera captured a glowing sphere hovering over the salt flats for nearly a minute. Temperature sensors registered a 5-degree rise in the air around it. Then, nothing. Locals call them ghost lights. Others call them desert eyes. Some say they appear before heat storms, as if the valley itself is warning anyone who dares to stay. But there's another theory. Native Paiute stories tell of spirits that travel as light, guardians of forbidden places. Their belief says, when you see the light, don't follow, because the next step won't be yours. Rangers quietly discourage night hiking now, not for safety, but because of what happens when the lights get close. People describe feeling pressure in their ears. Like altitude sickness, cameras stop working, and the silence, absolute silence, hits seconds before the glow fades. One visitor in 2021 left a review on a travel site. He wrote, "It's real. The lights don't illuminate anything. They just exist, and they watch you." The reports keep coming. Every summer, every winter, from people who don't know each other but describe the same impossible thing. Death Valley remains empty, but not still. It breathes in color, and the color breathes back. And when the lights fade, something else begins to hum beneath the dunes, a vibration that sounds almost like a voice. And if the desert can glow like it's alive, what happens in Colorado, where the earth itself sings and the sand carries a melody no one has been able to silence? The singing sand dunes of Great Sand Dunes National Park. The Great Sand Dunes rise from the Colorado Desert, like an ocean made of gold. Waves of dust, frozen mid-motion, sculpted by centuries of wind. When the sun hits them just right, they shimmer like glass. But beauty isn't the only thing that moves here. Sometimes the dunes sing, not softly, not like the whisper of sand in wind, but deep, a vibration that rolls through the ground and climbs into your bones, a sound so low and powerful that it feels alive. The earliest Spanish settlers called them Las Montañas que Cantan, the mountains that sing. Indigenous tribes before them said the sound was the voice of the earth remembering the dead, and modern visitors, standing barefoot on the dunes, say it's like standing inside a drum. The phenomenon has been recorded since the 1800s. Witnesses describe the same thing. Long, sustained notes that rise and fall, almost melodic, carrying for miles across the desert. Some compare it to an organ buried beneath the sand. Others call it a roar. Scientists have studied the sound for decades. They say it happens when millions of grains of sand slide down the slope in perfect harmony, a rare alignment of size, shape, and dryness. But even they admit the explanation doesn't hold. The pitch changes without pattern. The volume swells and fades like breath. And sometimes the dunes sing when no one is moving at all. In 1973, a team of geologists set up sensors across the main ridge. At dawn, the equipment registered a low-frequency vibration, 40 hertz pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. The sound lasted for 20 minutes, then stopped instantly. Wind readings showed nothing unusual. Locals say the dunes only sing when they want to be left alone. Visitors who try to climb during these moments describe their steps being pushed back, as if the sand itself rejects them. In 2005, a park ranger named Lisa Corbett documented an incident while guiding tourists at sunset. As the group descended, a deep tone rose from the ground, powerful enough to make their water bottles tremble. One child began to cry. Lisa wrote in her log, "It wasn't sound, it was presence, the earth was awake." The Park Service avoids the subject, calling it a natural resonance. But residents of nearby Alamosa tell a different story. They claim the dunes respond to emotion, that if you shout in anger, the dunes roar back, and if you stand in silence, you can hear faint voices woven into the hum. Recordings taken by visitors confirm something eerie. When slowed down, the dunes' song contains harmonics matching the range of the human voice. It doesn't sound random, it sounds intentional. Even more unsettling, the frequency of the sound has been changing. Researchers note that over the past 10 years, the dunes' tone has dropped nearly half an octave, a sign that whatever causes it is shifting. Some believe the dunes are growing restless, that they remember every footprint, every step taken without respect. and that one day the song will rise loud enough for the whole valley to hear. When the dunes sing, birds stop flying, the wind halts, and everything in the desert seems to pause listening, because maybe it's not the sand that's singing, maybe it's something buried beneath it, something that's been sleeping too long. And if the sand can sing, what do you make of the rivers in Yellowstone? Waters that whisper words no one alive can understand? The Whispering River of Yellowstone. There are more than 10,000 hot springs and geysers inside Yellowstone, boiling water, steam, pressure, all alive beneath the surface. But in one small valley, where no marked trail exists, the water does something else. It whispers. Locals call it the river that speaks. The phenomenon was first mentioned in 1934 when a ranger named Frank Halbrook wrote in his patrol journal, "Sounds like a voice in the steam, not wind, not echo, almost words." At first, no one believed him, but in the decades that followed, others began reporting the same thing. A soft, rhythmic murmur rising from a narrow stretch of river, somewhere near the Hayden Valley Basin. Not the rush of water, not the hiss of gas, but something closer to speech. The recordings are rare. Those who try to find the exact location never agree on where it is. Sometimes it's half a mile from the road. Sometimes it's further in, where GPS fails and the forest closes in tight. In 1959, two geology students from Montana State captured audio of the sound while mapping geothermal vents. The file still exists, archived in the National Park Service Library. When slowed down, the whisper becomes strangely structured. Repetitive patterns, pauses, something that almost resembles language. When the recording was analyzed again in 2003 using modern software, the technician who ran the test described it in a report. "If this is random noise, it's the most consistent randomness I've ever seen. Every attempt to reproduce the sound mechanically has failed. The pitch varies with no clear environmental trigger. Temperature, humidity, water flow, none of it changes the rhythm. And then there's the timing. The whispers only happen after sunset, never during the day, never when people are talking. Rangers who patrol that region avoid it after dark. They say it's not the sound that's frightening, it's what happens before it starts. The forest goes still, no wind, no insects. And then, faintly, a voice emerges. Low, human, but stretched, like breath dragged through stone. One ranger, interviewed anonymously in 1999, said, "It starts as one voice, then two. Then it sounds like an entire crowd whispering from the riverbank, but there's no one there." Scientists have suggested it could be gases escaping from deep fissures in the ground, resonating like an instrument. But that theory fails for one reason. The sound has been recorded half a mile from the river itself, sometimes in areas with no visible steam at all. In 2021, a backpacker left an audio recorder overnight near one of the tributaries rumored to carry the sound. When he retrieved it the next morning, the battery was drained. The file was corrupted except for 11 seconds. It begins with silence, then faint, synchronized whispers rising together, and at the end, just before the file cuts off, a single clear word is heard. Listen. No analysis has determined what caused it. No agency has claimed responsibility. The location of the Whispering River remains unofficial, unmarked, and avoided by rangers who know its history. Those who have heard it say, it doesn't feel like sound at all. It feels like attention, as if the park itself is aware you're there. Because Yellowstone doesn't just boil or burn, it watches. And if water can learn to whisper, what happens when light begins to think, flickering through the forests of Tennessee, where the fireflies move in perfect rhythm, as if guided by something unseen? The fireflies that blink in perfect synchrony. Every summer, deep inside the Great Smoky Mountains, the forest begins to breathe with light. For just a few weeks each year, the trees glow. Thousands of fireflies rise from the ground, pulsing in waves of gold, not randomly, not chaotically, but in perfect, impossible rhythm. Every flash, every pause, every burst of light aligned to the same invisible heartbeat. No one knows how they do it. Insects are not supposed to synchronize like this. Each species blinks on its own pattern, its own pace. But here, in the Smokies, the rules dissolve. Visitors describe it as standing inside a living pulse. 1,000 lights flicker in the dark, then stop together. Silence, darkness, and then all at once they ignite again, a wave rolling through the forest like thought itself. The phenomenon is so precise that scientists have tried for decades to decode it. Some say the fireflies use light the way whales use sound, a collective language, a kind of biological signal passed through rhythm. Others say it's chemistry, triggered by temperature and humidity, but those who've witnessed it know there's something else happening. It feels deliberate. It feels aware. In 1992, a team from the University of Tennessee set up synchronized cameras across the valley to record the event from multiple angles. When the footage was reviewed, the timing of the flashes created something unexpected, a geometric pattern, a spiraling sequence that repeated every 37 seconds. It wasn't random. It was symmetrical. One researcher described it as communication in math. Another refused to comment and quit the project. The park now controls access to the event, limiting visitors to small groups who sit in total silence as the forest lights up. Rangers instruct everyone not to use flashlights, not to talk, not even to breathe too loudly, because when the forest goes completely quiet, the lights react. In 2018, a biologist recorded a spike in electromagnetic interference during the synchronization. His instruments flickered in time with the insects. When the lights stopped, so did the interference. Some locals believe the fireflies aren't responding to each other. They're responding to something else, something that moves through the trees just beyond the reach of light, a presence that coordinates the flashes like a conductor leading an unseen orchestra. In old Appalachian folklore, these synchronized lights were called soul beacons, signals for the dead, guiding lost spirits through the forest. People still whisper that if you stand alone among them too long, the pattern will shift, and one light will break formation to follow you home. The synchronization ends as abruptly as it begins. One night, they blink together. The next, they don't. The forest returns to ordinary darkness, and the rhythm vanishes without trace, as if the mountain itself had been dreaming and finally woke up. The National Park Service still calls it a bioluminescent event, but no simulation has ever replicated the exact frequency of their flashing, because it isn't just light, it's intention. And when thousands of tiny lives start thinking together, in perfect silence, something ancient stirs between them, something that sees 6 mysteries, 6 parks, 6 signs that the wild isn't just alive, it's aware. Trumpets in the sky over Yellowstone, shadows walking through Yosemite, lights moving through the silence of Death Valley, sand that sings in Colorado, water that whispers in Yellowstone's dark, and fireflies that think in perfect rhythm. These aren't stories. They're patterns, and they're still happening. If you made it this far, thank you. Leave a like if one of these parks got under your skin tonight. Tell us in the comments which one still echoes in your mind, and which place you want us to explore next. And if you want more, the playlist is waiting. But remember, sometimes nature doesn't hide its mysteries, it performs them, and sometimes it performs for you.